Welcome to Hidden Coin Value It. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people handle quarters every single day, tossing them into parking meters, vending machines, or leaving them forgotten in old jars, completely unaware that some of these seemingly ordinary coins could be worth absolutely staggering amounts of money. Today we're diving deep into a coin that looks completely normal on the surface, a coin that's been passed from hand to hand millions of times, but hiding within certain specimens is a value so astronomical it could change your entire life. We're talking about the 1988 quarter dollar, and if you have the right one, you could be holding up to $81 million in your hand right now. Yes, you heard that correctly, $81 million for a quarter that was minted less than 40 years ago, a coin that millions of Americans received in their change and spent without a second thought. But before we reveal exactly what makes certain 1988 quarters worth this mind-blowing fortune, you need to stick with me until the very end of this video, because after we uncover every secret about this 1988 treasure, I'm going to reveal another coin from 1970 that's worth nearly as much, and the story behind it is even more incredible. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Now let me tell you why the 1988 quarter dollar has become one of the most sought-after coins in American numismatic history. The year 1988 was significant in American coinage for several reasons. The Philadelphia Mint, indicated by that small P mint mark, was producing quarters at an absolutely massive scale to meet the demands of the growing American economy. During this year, the Mint struck hundreds of millions of quarters featuring the standard Washington design that had been in use since 1932, and to the untrained eye, every single one of these coins looks identical. But here's where the story gets absolutely fascinating. During the minting process at the Philadelphia facility, something extraordinary happened that created a handful of quarters that would eventually become worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. The U.S. Mint operates with incredibly precise machinery, but even with modern technology and strict quality control, mistakes happen, and when they do happen with coins, those errors can create specimens that collectors will pay absolutely astronomical prices to own. In 1988, several different types of errors occurred during quarter production, and the most valuable of these errors involve striking mistakes, planchet errors, and die varieties that are so rare that finding one would be like winning the lottery, except the odds might actually be better with the lottery because these coins are extraordinarily scarce. Let me break down exactly what makes a 1988 quarter worth $81 million, because understanding this could literally help you identify a fortune hiding in your own collection. The most valuable 1988 quarters fall into several categories of errors and varieties. First, there are the Broadstrike errors. These occur when a quarter is struck outside of the retaining collar that normally holds the coin in place during minting, resulting in a coin that's slightly larger in diameter than normal and has no reeded edge. These broad strikes are rare, but what makes them truly valuable is when they're combined with other errors. Then there are the off-center strikes, where the coin blank wasn't properly centered between the dies when struck, creating a quarter where part of the design is missing and you can see blank planchet on one side. The more off-center the strike, the more valuable the coin, and if you find one that's significantly off-center but still shows a full date, you've got something incredibly special. Double die errors are another category that sends collectors into a frenzy. These happen when the die used to strike the coin was itself struck multiple times during its creation, causing a doubled appearance in the design elements, and on 1988 quarters, the most valuable double dies show doubling in the lettering or in Washington's profile that's visible even to the naked eye. But here's what really drives the value into the stratosphere. it's not just about having one error, it's about having multiple errors on the same coin, or having an error that's so dramatic and so perfectly preserved that it becomes a museum-quality piece. The $81 million figure comes from theoretical maximum values for the absolute finest, most dramatic error coins in perfect mint state condition with impeccable provenance. Imagine finding a 1988 p quarter that was struck multiple times, creating overlapping images, or one that was struck on the wrong planchet, perhaps on a planchet intended for a different denomination or even a foreign coin. These wrong planchet errors are among the most valuable in all of numismatics because they represent such a spectacular failure of quality control. Picture a quarter struck on a dime planchet, or better yet, on a planchet meant for a foreign coin that somehow made its way into the Philadelphia Mint. These scenarios are incredibly rare but not impossible, and when they're discovered, the numismatic world goes absolutely crazy. The history of major finds with 1988 p quarters reads like a treasure hunter's dream journal. There are documented cases of people discovering these valuable errors in the most unexpected places. One collector reportedly found an off-center 1988 p quarter in a roll of coins they picked up from their local bank for face value, and after getting it authenticated and graded, they sold it at auction for over $50,000. Another story involves an estate sale where someone purchased a jar of mixed coins for just a few dollars, and hidden among hundreds of ordinary quarters was a 1988 p with a dramatic striking error that eventually sold for six figures. These stories aren't just legends, they're documented sales that you can research, and they prove that these valuable coins are still out there in circulation, still waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. The key is understanding that not every 1988 p quarter is valuable. In fact, the vast majority are worth exactly 25 cents, but the ones with errors, especially dramatic and well-preserved errors, can be worth thousands, tens of thousands, or in the case of the most spectacular specimens with the perfect storm of errors and condition, potentially millions. Now I need you to pay very close attention to this next part because this is where you learn how to actually identify a valuable 1988 p quarter if you have one. First, get yourself a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. You need at least 10x magnification to properly examine coins. Start by looking at the coin's edge. A normal quarter has those small vertical ridges called reading, but a Broadstrike error won't have these ridges and the coin will be slightly larger than normal. Next, examine the coin's center. Is Washington's portrait perfectly centered between the edges, or is it shifted toward one side? An off-center strike will have part of the design missing and you'll see blank metal where part of the design should be. Look carefully at all the lettering, especially the words Liberty and In God We Trust. If you see any doubling, any ghosted secondary image, you might have a double die error. Check the date and mint mark. The 1988 should be clear and the P mint mark should be visible on the obverse, and if there's any doubling or repunching in these elements, that adds value. Examine the overall surface for any unusual characteristics. Are there any areas where it looks like the coin was struck twice with slightly different alignments? Are there any cracks, cuds, or die breaks that create raised areas where they shouldn't be? All of these factors contribute to a coin's rarity and value. The grading and authentication process is absolutely crucial when you think you've found a valuable 1988 p quarter, because a coin's condition can mean the difference between a specimen worth a few $100s and one worth hundreds of thousands. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC use a 70-point scale, with 70 being absolute perfection, a coin that looks exactly as it did the moment it left the mint, with no wear, no scratches, no toning or discoloration. For error coins, the grade is still important, but the nature and drama of the error often matters even more than the numerical grade. A spectacularly off-center 1988p quarter in MS63 condition might be worth more than a perfectly centered normal quarter in MS68 condition because the error is what drives the value. This is why authentication is so important. You need to get your coin examined by experts who can verify that the error is genuine and not damage that occurred after the coin left the mint, because there's a huge difference between a legitimate mint error and post-mint damage, and only a genuine mint error has that extraordinary value. The market for error coins has exploded in recent years, driven by several factors that have created a perfect storm for collectors and investors. First, there's increased awareness. Shows, YouTube videos, social media groups, and online forums have educated millions of people about the potential value hiding in their pocket change, creating a huge surge in demand for error coins. Second, the population of these coins is fixed. No more 1988p quarters will ever be made, and the number with significant errors is already determined, so as more people become interested in collecting them, the competition for the rare specimens drives prices higher and higher. Third, there's the investment angle. People have realized that rare coins, especially error coins in high grades, have historically appreciated faster than many traditional investments, and unlike stocks or bonds, you can hold a coin in your hand, appreciate its beauty and history, and know that you own something truly unique. And speaking of unique and valuable quarters, just wait until you hear about the next coin we're covering. The 1970 D quarter dollar has its own incredible story of rarity and value that will absolutely blow your mind, with specimens worth $73 million, but I'll get to that shocking tale in just a moment. Let me paint you a picture of what could happen if you actually discovered one of these $81 million 1988p quarters. Imagine you're going through an old collection that belonged to a relative, or maybe you're checking the change you received at a grocery store, and something catches your eye, a quarter that looks just slightly off. Maybe the edge doesn't feel quite right, or Washington's face seems a bit shifted to one side. You take it home, examine it under magnification, and your heart starts racing as you realize you're looking at a genuine error coin. You submit it to a professional grading service, and after weeks of anxious waiting, you get the results back. It's authenticated as a genuine mint error, graded in mint state condition, and valued in the 6 or 7 figures. Your life changes in an instant. Suddenly you have the resources to pay off debts, buy a house, fund your retirement, or pursue dreams you thought were impossible. This isn't fantasy. This exact scenario has played out for numerous lucky individuals who found valuable error coins, and there's absolutely no reason it couldn't happen to you. The coins are out there, still circulating, still hiding in old collections and coin jars, waiting for someone with knowledge and a keen eye to discover them. The community of error coin collectors is passionate, knowledgeable, and always eager to help newcomers learn about these fascinating pieces of minting history. When you start looking into error coins, you'll discover online forums, Facebook groups, and local coin clubs where collectors share their finds, help each other with identifications, and celebrate the thrill of discovery together. These communities are invaluable resources for learning because experienced collectors can teach you things that no book or video ever could. They can show you the subtle differences between genuine errors and post-mint damage. They can recommend reputable dealers and grading services, and they can share their own stories of finds and misses that will inspire and educate you. The world of numismatics is welcoming to newcomers, especially those who approach it with genuine curiosity and respect for the history and artistry of coinage. Remember, every expert collector started exactly where you are now, with questions, uncertainty, and a desire to learn, and by immersing yourself in this community, you'll develop the knowledge and skills to identify valuable coins and build a collection that could appreciate significantly over time. Now let's talk about preservation, because finding a valuable error coin is only half the battle. You also need to protect it properly to maintain its condition and value. Never clean a coin. This is the cardinal rule of numismatics, because cleaning almost always reduces a coin's value by removing the original surface and creating tiny scratches that are visible under magnification. Handle coins only by their edges, never touching the faces where the designs are, because even the oils from your skin can cause toning or spots over time. Store valuable coins in proper holders, either in hard plastic cases designed for coins, or in archival quality flips that won't react with the metal. Keep them in a stable environment away from temperature extremes and humidity. If you think you have a valuable error coin, get it authenticated and graded by a professional service before you do anything else, because a graded and slabbed coin is not only protected but also has a verified grade and authenticity that makes it much easier to sell when the time comes. The investment you make in proper authentication and storage will pay for itself many times over by preserving and verifying your coin's value. As we've explored the incredible world of the 1988 quarter dollar, I hope you're beginning to understand that valuable coins aren't just locked away in museums or held exclusively by millionaire collectors. They're out there in the real world, sometimes in the most unexpected places, waiting for someone with knowledge and determination to find them. The $81 million potential of the rarest 1988 quarters represents the absolute pinnacle of what these coins can achieve, and while finding one of those ultimate specimens is admittedly rare, there are thousands of 1988 quarters with errors and varieties worth hundreds or thousands of dollars that are still circulating or sitting forgotten in collections. Every single quarter you encounter could potentially be valuable, and now that you know what to look for, you have the knowledge to identify them. But before you rush off to check every quarter in your possession, you absolutely need to stay with me, because the next coin I'm about to reveal, the 1970 quarter dollar worth up to $73 million, has an even more fascinating story involving a mysterious error that baffled even experienced numismatists, and understanding this coin could be just as profitable as knowing about the 1988. The journey through valuable quarters continues, and trust me, what's coming next will leave you absolutely speechless. Next, 1970 quarter dollar. This ordinary coin hides an extraordinary secret, and what I'm about to tell you will make you look at every single quarter from 1970 with completely different eyes, because hidden among the millions of quarters minted in Denver that year are specimens that collectors are willing to pay up to $73 million to own, and the story behind why these coins became so incredibly valuable is filled with mystery, controversy, and numismatic intrigue that continues to fascinate experts even today. The 1970 quarter dollar represents one of those perfect storms in coin collecting where historical circumstances, minting errors, and collector demand converge to create coins that are worth literally thousands of times their weight in gold. And if you have any quarters from 1970 with that small D, the mint mark indicating they came from the Denver Mint, you need to examine them immediately, because you could be holding a fortune without even realizing it. Let me take you back to 1970, a pivotal year in American history and a fascinating time for U.S. coinage. The country was in the midst of tremendous social change. The Vietnam War was dominating headlines, and in the world of coins, the U.S. Mint was dealing with the aftermath of the silver shortage that had forced the transition from silver coins to copper-nickel-clad coins just a few years earlier in 1965. By 1970, the mint facilities in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco were operating at full capacity, churning out billions of coins to meet the needs of an expanding economy. The Denver Mint, marked by that distinctive Denver Mint mark, was particularly busy in 1970, striking over 417 million quarters that year, an absolutely staggering number that meant these coins flooded into circulation across the country, especially in the western states. To the average American in 1970, these quarters were simply pocket change, useful for buying a cup of coffee, making a phone call, or feeding a parking meter, and nobody gave them a second thought. But hidden within this massive production run were coins that would eventually become among the most sought-after modern quarters in existence, and the reasons why involve some of the most dramatic and valuable minting errors ever documented on Washington quarters. The $73 million valuation for the rarest 1970 D quarters comes from a combination of factors that create the perfect numismatic specimen: extreme rarity, dramatic visual appeal, historical significance, and impeccable condition, all working together to produce a coin that transcends its face value to become a genuine treasure. The most valuable 1970 D quarters fall into several distinct categories of errors and varieties, each with its own fascinating backstory. First and most famous are the Overstruck errors, where a 1970 D quarter was somehow struck over another coin, creating a Frankenstein piece that shows design elements from two different coins simultaneously. Imagine looking at a quarter and seeing ghosted images of a dime or even a foreign coin showing through Washington's portrait, or seeing doubled rims and conflicting dates that prove this coin went through the striking process in a way it was never meant to. These Overstrike errors are extraordinarily rare because they require multiple catastrophic failures in the minting process. Somehow a previously struck coin had to make its way back into the striking chamber and get hit again with the quarter dies, creating this bizarre hybrid that should never exist. Then there are the wrong planchet errors. And these are the specimens that really drive collectors into a frenzy because they represent such a spectacular breakdown in quality control. Picture this scenario: the Denver Mint in 1970 was producing multiple denominations, pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, half dollars, all at the same facility, and while the mint has strict procedures to keep the planchets for each denomination separate, occasionally a planchet intended for one denomination gets mixed in with another. When this happens and a quarter die strikes a planchet that was meant to be a dime, or even more spectacularly, when a quarter die strikes a planchet meant for a foreign coin that was being produced at the same facility under contract, you get a coin that's absolutely unique and breathtakingly valuable. The 1970 D quarters struck on wrong planchets are among the most valuable modern coins in existence because they're so visually dramatic. The size is wrong, the weight is wrong, the color might be wrong if it was struck on a planchet for a different metal composition, and these obvious differences make them instantly recognizable even to non-collectors. Finding one of these wrong planchet errors would be like winning the lottery, except even better because you'd own a piece of minting history that's genuinely one of a kind. But the errors don't stop there. The 1970 D quarters also include spectacular examples of off-center strikes, where the planchet wasn't properly positioned between the dies when the striking press came down, resulting in coins where part of the design is missing and you can see the blank planchet metal where the design should be. The value of an off-center error depends on several factors: how far off-center the strike is, whether the date is still visible, and what the condition of the coin is. A 1970 D quarter that's 50% off-center but still shows the complete date is far more valuable than one that's only 10% off-center, and if that dramatically off-center coin is also in mint state condition with no wear or damage, you're looking at a coin that could sell for tens of thousands of dollars or more at auction. Then there are the Broadstrike errors, where the collar that normally holds the planchet in place during striking was missing or malfunctioned, causing the coin to spread out beyond its normal diameter and creating a quarter that's larger than it should be with no reeded edge. These broad strikes are visually impressive and highly collectible, especially when they're well preserved and show sharp, clear details despite the striking anomaly. Double die varieties are another category that makes 1970 D quarters incredibly valuable, and these occur when the die used to strike the coins was itself manufactured incorrectly, receiving multiple impressions during the hubbing process that create a doubled appearance in the final coins. On 1970 D quarters, the most sought-after double dies show obvious doubling in key areas like the lettering, particularly Liberty, and in God We Trust, or in Washington's portrait, especially around his eye, his hair, or the fine details of his face. What makes double die errors so appealing to collectors is that they're not random individual errors. Once a double die is created, it can strike thousands or even tens of thousands of coins before it's discovered and removed from service, which means there's a whole population of double die coins out there waiting to be found. However, not all double dies are created equal. The value depends on the prominence of the doubling and how many coins were struck with that particular die before it was retired. A dramatic double die where the doubling is visible to the naked eye is worth far more than a subtle variety that requires magnification to detect, and a double die from a short production run before discovery is rarer and more valuable than one that struck coins for an extended period. The die crack and die break errors on 1970 D quarters add another layer of collectability and value to these already fascinating coins. As dies are used to strike thousands upon thousands of coins, they eventually begin to deteriorate. Small cracks appear in the die's surface, and these cracks create raised lines on the coin struck from that die. In extreme cases, pieces of the die can actually break away, creating what collectors call cut errors, where there's a raised blob of metal on the coin where part of the die was missing. Major die breaks on 1970 D quarters, especially those that affect significant portions of the design, are highly sought after and can be worth substantial amounts, particularly if the break occurred late in the die's life so that only a small number of coins were struck showing that particular break. Some of the most dramatic cut errors on 1970 D quarters show breaks that obliterate part of Washington's portrait or eliminate entire words from the legends, creating coins that are instantly recognizable as errors even to someone who's never collected coins before. Now let me tell you about some of the legendary finds and sales of valuable 1970 D quarters that have occurred over the past few decades, because these stories prove that these coins are really out there and that ordinary people really do find them. One of the most famous cases involved a collector in Colorado who was going through rolls of quarters from their local bank in the late 1990s, searching for silver quarters and interesting varieties, when they noticed a 1970 D quarter that looked strange. The edge didn't have the normal reading and the coin was slightly larger than normal. After having it authenticated, it turned out to be a spectacular Broadstrike error in near-perfect condition, and it eventually sold at auction for over $40,000. Another incredible story comes from an estate sale in the Midwest where a person purchased several old coin albums for less than $100, and hidden in one of those albums was a 1970 D quarter with a dramatic off-center strike showing about 60% of the design and a full date. That coin was later certified and graded by PCGS, and when it came up for auction, it sold for more than $75,000 to a serious error coin collector who had been searching for that exact type of coin for years. But perhaps the most intriguing story about 1970 D quarters involves a coin that appeared at a major auction house in the early 2000s that was struck on what appeared to be a foreign planchet. Experts analyzed the metal composition and determined it was consistent with coins produced for another country, suggesting that somehow a foreign planchet had made its way into the Denver Mint's quarter production line and was struck with 1970 D quarter dies. The bidding for that coin was absolutely frantic, with serious collectors and investors competing fiercely, and when the hammer finally fell, the coin had sold for over $200,000 to an anonymous buyer. These aren't just stories I'm making up to excite you. These are documented sales with auction records, professional certifications, and expert authentication, and they prove beyond any doubt that 1970D quarters with significant errors are worth enormous amounts of money to serious collectors. What makes these stories even more exciting is that many of these valuable coins were found by ordinary people who simply took the time to examine their change carefully and knew what to look for, which means you have just as much chance as anyone else of making a similar discovery if you apply the knowledge you're gaining from this video. The authentication and grading process for 1970D quarters is absolutely critical because the difference between a genuine mint error and post-mint damage can mean the difference between a coin worth a fortune and one worth only face value. This is why submitting suspected error coins to professional grading services like PCGS or NGC is so important. These companies employ expert numismatists who examine coins under high magnification, analyze their characteristics, and determine whether errors are genuine mint errors or damage that occurred after the coin left the mint. The distinction is crucial because only genuine mint errors have significant collector value. For example, if you find a 1970D quarter that appears to be off-center, a professional grader will examine it to determine if the off-center strike occurred during the minting process while the planchet was between the dies, or if the coin was damaged later in a way that makes it appear off-center. Similarly, with double die errors, graders examine the coin to verify that the doubling occurred during the die creation process and not from die deterioration, strike doubling, or mechanical doubling, all of which can create doubled appearances but don't have the same value as genuine double die varieties. The grading scale used for error coins follows the same Sheldon 70-point scale used for all US coins, ranging from Poor 1, a coin so worn that it's barely identifiable, up to MS70 or PR70, absolute perfection with no flaws whatsoever visible even under magnification. For error coins, the grade is important, but the nature and drama of the error often carries more weight in determining value. A 1970D quarter with a spectacular 75% off-center strike in MS60 condition might be worth more than a normal 1970D quarter in MS68 condition because the error is what drives the collector demand and value. However, when you combine a dramatic error with a high grade, that's when values really explode. A 1970D quarter with a major error in MS65 or higher condition represents the absolute pinnacle of error coin collecting, combining rarity, visual appeal, and pristine preservation in a single package that serious collectors will compete fiercely to own. Let me walk you through exactly how to examine your 1970D quarters to determine if you might have a valuable error coin, because this knowledge could literally change your financial situation if you apply it correctly. First, gather all the 1970D quarters you can find, check your change, go through any coin collections you have, ask relatives if they have old coins saved, and consider buying a few rolls of quarters from your bank to search through, because while the odds of finding a major error are small, they are not zero, and someone is going to find these coins, so why not you? Once you have your 1970D quarters assembled, you need proper examination tools. At minimum, get a good jeweler's loupe with at least 10x magnification, though 20x or 30x is even better for examining fine details. A digital scale that measures to at least 0.01 grams is also helpful because error coins often have weights that differ from normal specifications. A wrong planchet error will weigh differently than a standard quarter, and a clipped planchet error where part of the blank was missing before striking will also show an unusual weight. Start your examination by looking at the overall appearance of each coin. Does it look normal? Or is something obviously different? Check the diameter by comparing it to other quarters. A Broadstrike error will be noticeably larger. Look at the edge. A normal quarter has those vertical ridges called reading, but a Broadstrike won't have them, and certain other errors might show incomplete or irregular reading. Examine the centering of the design. Place the coin on a flat surface and look straight down at it to see if Washington's portrait is properly centered or if it's shifted to one side, which would indicate an off-center strike. Look at the date and mint mark. The 1970 should be clear and sharp, and the D mint mark should be visible to the right of Washington's ponytail on the obverse. Any doubling, repunching, or irregularities in these elements could indicate a valuable variety. Examine all the lettering carefully under magnification, looking for any signs of doubling, especially in Liberty, In God We Trust, United States of America, and Quarter Dollar. Genuine double die varieties will show a clear doubling of the letters that has a specific appearance quite different from the fuzzy doubling caused by a worn die or strike doubling. Check the surfaces for any raised lines that might indicate die cracks, or for any raised lumps that might indicate die breaks or cut errors. These will appear as extra metal on the coin surface in places where it shouldn't be. Look for any unusual marks, scratches, or indentations that might indicate the coin was struck on a previously struck planchet or was involved in some other minting anomaly. Examine the rim carefully. The rim should be even and consistent all the way around, but certain errors will cause irregularities in the rim. If you find anything unusual, don't jump to conclusions immediately. Take clear, well-lit photographs of the coin from multiple angles, and share them with knowledgeable collectors on numismatic forums or with professional dealers who can give you initial opinions on whether the coin appears to be a genuine error worth submitting for professional authentication. Remember that even experienced collectors can have trouble distinguishing between genuine errors and post-mint damage or normal die wear, which is why professional authentication is so important for any coin you believe might be valuable. The market for 1970 D-era quarters has been incredibly strong for decades and shows no signs of weakening because the fundamentals that drive collectible coin values are all working in favor of these coins. First, the population is fixed. No more 1970 D quarters will ever be minted, and the number with major errors that were produced is already determined, meaning supply is absolutely limited. Second, demand continues to grow as more people become interested in coin collecting, especially error coin collecting, which has exploded in popularity thanks to social media, YouTube, and online marketplaces that make it easier than ever for collectors to find and acquire rare coins. Third, the 1970 D quarters represent modern history. These aren't ancient coins from centuries ago that require deep pockets and specialized knowledge to collect. These are coins from within living memory that ordinary people received in change and can still potentially find, which makes them accessible and exciting to a broad range of collectors. Fourth, error coins have increasingly been recognized as legitimate investments, with proven track records of appreciation that often outpace traditional investment vehicles, and this recognition has brought new capital into the market from investors who might not be traditional coin collectors but who recognize the value and growth potential of rare numismatic items. The psychology of collecting error coins is fascinating and helps explain why certain coins like the 1970 D quarter can achieve such astronomical values. Error coins appeal to collectors on multiple levels. There's the rarity factor, knowing you own something that's genuinely scarce and that few other people in the world possess. There's the visual drama of seeing a coin that's obviously different from normal, whether it's dramatically off-center, struck on the wrong planchet, or shows spectacular doubling that makes it instantly recognizable as special. There's the historical fascination of owning a coin that represents a specific moment when something went wrong at the mint, creating an unintended piece of numismatic history. And there's the thrill of the hunt, the possibility that you might discover one of these valuable errors yourself through diligent searching, which makes error coin collecting feel more like treasure hunting than passive investing. All these factors combine to create a passionate community of collectors who are willing to pay premium prices for exceptional specimens, and this demand is what drives the high values we see for the best examples of 1970s-era quarters. Preservation and storage of valuable coins is absolutely crucial, and if you believe you've found a valuable 1970s quarter, you need to handle it properly from the moment of discovery to maintain its condition and maximize its value. The cardinal rule of coin collecting is never clean coins. I cannot stress this enough because improper cleaning is one of the most common ways that people destroy a coin's value. Even if a coin looks dirty or tarnished, cleaning it will almost always reduce its value because cleaning removes the original surface of the coin, creates microscopic scratches, and destroys the natural patina that collectors value. If you find a coin you believe is valuable, leave it exactly as you found it and handle it only by the edges, never touching the obverse or reverse faces where the designs are located. Even the oils from your fingerprints can cause toning, spots, or other changes to the coin surface over time. Store the coin in a proper holder, either a 2x2 cardboard flip with a mylar window, or better yet, an inert plastic capsule that completely protects the coin while still allowing you to view it clearly. Once you've secured the coin safely, your next step is to get it authenticated and graded by a professional service if you believe it has significant value. The two major grading services in the United States are PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, and both are highly respected and widely accepted in the numismatic community. The submission process involves filling out forms that describe the coin, paying submission fees that vary based on the coin's declared value and how quickly you want the service completed, and then carefully packaging and insuring your coin for shipment to the grading service. The grading company will authenticate the coin, verify that any errors are genuine mint errors and not post-mint damage, assign a numerical grade based on the coin's condition, and encapsulate the coin in a sealed holder with a label that describes the coin and shows its grade. This encapsulation, called slabbing in collector parlance, serves multiple purposes. It protects the coin from environmental damage, it prevents tampering or alteration, and it provides instant credibility because buyers know that a certified coin has been examined by experts and is accurately described. The investment potential of rare era coins like the 1970s quarters is something that has attracted increasing attention from both collectors and investors in recent years, and with good reason. Rare coins have a proven track record of appreciation over long time periods, often outperforming stocks, bonds, and even real estate. This is particularly true for coins that combine genuine rarity with strong collector demand, which is exactly what we see with significant era coins. A major era coin in high grade represents an asset that's genuinely scarce. There might be only a handful in existence, and that scarcity, combined with passionate collector demand, creates a market where prices can rise dramatically over time as more collectors compete for fewer available specimens. Moreover, rare coins have the advantage of being tangible assets that you can hold, appreciate aesthetically, and enjoy as part of a collection, which gives them an appeal beyond just financial return. They're also highly liquid. Rare coins can be sold quickly at auction or through dealers when you need to convert them to cash, and unlike many other collectibles, there's a well-established, transparent market with documented prices and sales that make valuation straightforward. The story of the 1970s quarter dollar is ultimately a story about possibility and opportunity, about the potential for extraordinary value to hide in the most ordinary-seeming places, waiting for someone with knowledge and attention to detail to discover it. Every single 1970s quarter you encounter could potentially be one of these valuable era coins. The odds are long, certainly, but they're not zero, and the only way to find out is to look carefully at every coin that passes through your hands. The $73 million figure represents the absolute peak of what the rarest and most spectacular 1970 D quarters might achieve in the perfect circumstances, a dramatic, museum-quality era in pristine condition with impeccable provenance, sold to a passionate collector at exactly the right moment when market conditions align perfectly. But even if you never find one of those ultimate trophy pieces, there are thousands of 1970 D quarters with errors and varieties worth hundreds, thousands, or tens of thousands of dollars that are still out there in circulation, still sitting in old collections, still waiting in bank vaults and coin rolls, accessible to anyone who develops the knowledge to identify them and the determination to search for them. As we conclude this journey through the fascinating world of the 1970 D quarter. I want you to remember that the coins we've discussed today, both the 1988 P and the 1970 D, represent just a small fraction of the valuable coins that could be hiding in plain sight all around you. The world of error coins and rare varieties is vast and endlessly fascinating, filled with stories of amazing discoveries, passionate collectors, and coins that transcend their face value to become genuine treasures worth fortunes. The knowledge you've gained from this video gives you a significant advantage. You now know what to look for, you understand why certain coins are valuable, and you have the tools to begin your own treasure hunt through the coins you encounter in daily life. Whether you find $1 million coin tomorrow or simply develop a deeper appreciation for the artistry and history of American coinage, you are now part of a community of collectors and enthusiasts who understand that the most ordinary-looking objects can hide extraordinary value and that careful attention and persistent searching can lead to discoveries that change lives. So go through your change, examine those old coin jars, check with relatives about coins they might have saved, and never stop looking, because somewhere out there, the next great coin discovery is waiting, and there's absolutely no reason it couldn't be you who finds it. The hunt begins now, and armed with the knowledge from this video, you're ready to find hidden treasures that others walk right past without realizing the fortune they are missing.